Greetings, YouTube model train people. In this video, we will be doing a basic decoder and some lights install on this old Athearn Blue Box F7. This is a Chicago Northwestern. It has had some upgrades done on it already. It's got some wire grab handrails and this metal screens on both sides. The decoder we'll be using is standard Digitrax wire decoder. So let's go ahead and try it out on DC here, see how it runs. There it goes. All right, seems to be okay. It's nice and quiet. So to open these up, there's two snaps on either side right here. Just pry that up a little bit. And on the other side. And then this has a front coupler on it, so I may need to take that off. We'll see what we can do here. Nope, I was able to get it off. Oh, what do we have here? So this seems to have... This is not the original motor. Okay. It's in... I don't know if you can see this, but it's... I can get at the camera to zoom, focus here. The motor's like in there really crooked. Huh. Okay. Yeah, the angle of these drive lines here is not ideal either. Let's well, it seems to run pretty well. Okay, let's get started with the decoder install. So, what do we have here? Oh, great. I'm gonna have to isolate this motor from the frame, which means I'm gonna have to somehow get this out of here. Well, it's not stuck in there very hard. Okay. Let's do away with some of these extra wires here. Okay, so I have the motor isolated here. This is the bottom wire from the motor. And I think I have the motor in here a little bit better than it was. It's still like it's stuck in with this awful black gunk stuff. I don't know what that is, but it's really sticky and doesn't particularly do the job of the motor's really not. Okay, so it kind of works, but the problem is this motor is not in here well enough, so it keeps moving around. So I'm gonna have to come up with a better way to mount that. All right, so off camera, I printed a couple of plastic blocks to go here on either side of the motor to kind of hold it in place, and that really does seem to do the job. It's just a friction fit, but that seems to be enough. That plus this black goop stuff seems to be good enough to hold it here. Okay, for the decoder install, I'm going to be this light bulb, kind of cute here. They did a pretty good job. They did a diode there, so it only goes one direction, but I'm not going to be using that. We'll be using a LED, so I'm just going to go ahead and get that out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to mount the decoder in the top of the shell. So in order to take off the shell, I'll be doing a connector so it can be disconnected. These are really cheap PCB connectors that you can get, and that's what I'll be using. So there are 4 wires. So I'm using. Okay, so here's what I did for connections to this. Zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so here's what I did for connections on this guy. I've got the red wire, which is this side of the track, coming over to this far pin. Then the next pin over is the top side of the motor. The next pin over is the bottom side of the motor. And then the far one here is the chassis ground. Now, there's a reason I do it in that order. So that way, when you plug this side in, if you get it wrong, there's no chance of doing any damage. If you get it backwards, like if you flip it over this way, it'll be fine because the tracks, 2 sides of the track will just be connected to opposite sides, which does nothing, and the motor will just be reversed, which just makes the motor go the opposite direction. And if you accidentally really mess up and get it like plugged in off to the side like that, then it won't matter because you can't fry anything with because only one side of the power will be hooked up, the other side won't be hooked up. So yeah, it makes it almost foolproof to plug this back in. Okay, so the 4 wires that we need to connect to here are black and red to the 2 sides of the rail, and orange and light gray to the motor. And since I'm going to mount this decoder up into the chassis, I want to make the wires long enough. I want to make the wires long enough that you can get the shell off easily, but not so long that not so much that they get caught up in the mechanism here. So I'm thinking maybe like that long. All right, so here I have the connections made from the decoder to the chassis unit. We've got the red wire from the decoder going to this side of the rails, the black wire from the decoder going to the chassis, the orange wire in this case is going to the lower motor connection, and the gray wire is going to the top. That's just because of the way this motor is oriented in here, because I want this to go forward. Probably you're not going to have the same motor, so these two you may need to switch around. And now I will take it down to the programming track and see if it works. All right, so now I've got it here on the programming track, and I've got JMRI running, and I'm going to just hit identify here. And you can see it moves a little bit. And it's going to come up and say, no roster entry found. That's because I haven't programmed it or anything yet. But I always do this on the programming track first, just to make sure that everything's working right before I put it on a higher power or higher current track. So we should be good for now. Okay, so unfortunately the SD card in my camera got corrupted. I had to reformat it, and I lost a little bit of footage here. So I'll just kind of give you a quick summary of what I did. I took some pre-wired LEDs, look kind of like this, and I filed off the end of them so they were flat, and then I super glued those in front of the lenses here and here for the headlights. And then for the classification lights, I have some dual color pre-wired surface mount LEDs. Here's what they look like. I'll try to find a link to this and put it up on the screen. Basically, if you get these, you want to look for something that's common anode, not common cathode, because the blue wire from your decoder is plus, so you need to have the common anode. That's the way most of them are, but you never know. There might be some that aren't. So I'll show you what these look like. And these do not have a resistor installed, so I will be using a resistor here. Now on these ones that I got, the anode is actually the long wire. If you look at these wires, one of them's a little bit longer. I don't know if you get a different setup, maybe it won't be the case. So there's a white side and a red. And then I basically took these and I super glued them to the back of the classification light right here. This shell had already had, somebody else had already put these classification lights in here. So that was just like that when I got it. And I just super glued these to the back. And then for the wiring, I'll kind of run through this and then I'll show you a wiring diagram too. So all of the anodes, the commons, are going to go to the blue wire right here off the decoder, and that's going to be this junction here. And then the two cathodes for the two headlights are coming here to the white wire, which is the forward headlight. And then the two red cathodes off the surface mounts are coming here to the yellow, which is the reverse light. And then the function, the violet function wire here, is going to the white classification lights. And then for the warning light, I'll be using these. You've seen me use these before. And to hook these up off the circuit board here, there's a black and a red wire. The red wire will tie in with the rest of the anodes right here, and the black wire I will be hooking to the green function wire. All right, so I kind of have everything tucked back up in here. Got the decoder and the little circuit board for the warning light double-sided taped onto the roof here, and just kind of packed the wires up in here the best I could. This is kind of a unique situation. As this came originally with the original motor, there would have been a big metal weight that sits on the top, and that really limits how much space you have up here in the shell for electronics. So just be aware of that if you have the original setup. This is kind of a unique situation here. Okay, so here are the results for the lights. There's the headlights, which are way, way, way too bright. I don't know how much it shows up on the camera, but yeah, that's like massive searchlight. Yeah, way above and beyond what it should be. So I might have to be addressing that. Here's the reverse light. And there are the classification lights. And the warning light. So I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out, I guess, except for the headlights. I'm going to go in and maybe more resistors. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that a little more. But I think I'm gonna wrap up the video for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos a lot like this, then subscribe to my channel. Thanks. See you in the next video.